Why do you feel like that is so dangerous? I mean, especially nowadays. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago when one of my clients who was a TV anchor, I won't say his name, a TV anchor, we took a picture together, and all of a sudden he sent me the picture afterwards, and I see like shoulders are bigger and biceps are bigger and waist is smaller. And I'm like, yeah, of course we both look amazing, but obviously people, when they see you in person, they're not going to notice that. I mean, why is that so dangerous on a mental aspect for people?
I think that goes along with body dysmorphia, then how you see yourself or how you're I feel like it starts to make you think that this is how you look or how you should look. And then when you see what you look like in the mirror or in a picture, it's not connecting.
Yeah.
And I think it's just really dangerous because then you might be trying to strive for something that's physically impossible.
Yeah.
Especially I mean, you look at really, really fit. If you were trying to get to that picture that was edited, you might kill yourself in the gym just really trying. And then from the med spa and surgery perspective, one of the biggest complaints I hear from surgeons all the time is people bringing in filtered or edited pictures of themselves or other people and asking for those results. And they're telling them this is physically impossible. There is no surgery that can do this for you.
So people are
And
bringing in pictures of themselves with Instagram filter, Snapchat, whatever, right?
yes,
And they're saying this, I want with these or these eyes or skin tone.
right.
That's what they're going for, like almost like a cartoon
Yes.
look.
Yes. And I had a surgeon tell me that they had to sit a patient down and say, I would have to physically remove your eyes and put them in a different part of your head to get this look. And she said, okay. And he was like, that's not, there's no surgery. There is no surgery for this. And so she was willing to have her eyes removed
Oh my God.
and replaced. Yeah. And he was like, that's not a thing. This is not a surgery. And he also was talking about the really tiny waist that people are coming in with these like super, super slimmed in waists and was like, can you do this like with lipo? And he was like, no, at this point, it's your bone structure. You can't go any further. There's no room for your organs. If we were to do any, there's no surgery for it basically.
Wow.
And people are having a hard time understanding that Photoshop can do things that not even surgery can do.
Right. So, I mean, they're just becoming completely disconnected with reality, and they've
Yes.
created this new reality, right?
Yes.
Wow. What about you? I mean, has there, I imagine, I think we all do, but is there anything that you have struggled with? And I mean, reason why you started this account or anything that, with your own, personal journey with this?
Honestly, I feel like my personal journey was worse before I started this account.
Mm.
I mean, so I'll go ahead and tell you, I'm 31 years old. I grew up where you were supposed to be super, super tiny with giant boobs somehow. And
Like
in
gender,
high
that's
school,
impossible.
yeah, I struggled with an eating disorder. That's
Okay.
part of the reason why I became a dietitian.
Yeah.
And so it's really bizarre because now it's like the opposite. Like, I mean, you're still supposed to be thin, but you're like supposed to be curvy. Back when I was in high school, it was like, can I fit into a double zero? Like a zero is not enough. I need to be smaller. Like I need to take up as like least amount of space as possible. So I feel like I had already gone through all of that, the therapy with that, and then moving into this space where I'm behind the curtain, like you said, where I'm seeing all the procedures people get done. And I know all the, Instagram and video like tricks and Photoshop and editing and Facetune. I don't I don't feel like I struggle with that. I mean, I get work done. I get Botox. I get lip fillers every so often. I'll add a little bit to my cheeks to make sure I don't get gel. So maybe it's an anti-aging thing, and
Sure.
maybe you know. But I've not had any like work done to my body. I've never had anything like that going on for me. And so, if anything, it's interesting because I post my face and I post my procedures on my page a lot, and people will come for me for what I look like. And it's bizarre because I'm like, I don't even know you, so I really don't care what you have to say about my face.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know if it's made me have tougher skin or if I was lucky that I came in with tougher skin,
Mm.
honestly,
Okay.
and that I missed being 20 in this day and age, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I talk about this all the time with my wife. I'm so glad that I didn't grow up in an age of social media. I mean, when I first got Facebook, it was the Facebook, and you had to have a .edu. There was no posting on walls and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, wow. I mean, I already struggled with, depression. I can't even imagine, what would happen with that. I mean, it's really interesting because, I got braces as a kid. I had night gear. I had a retainer. I had all this sort of stuff and glasses and all these things. And so these are all little procedures that we have done. And everybody's like, oh yeah, I had braces. I had an overbite. I had whatever. But then people aren't willing to say when they had something more cosmetically done. I think boobs, maybe it's kind of obvious, but they're not willing to just mention like, oh yeah, I had some Botox, I did some whatever. I don't know. It's really interesting to me. Do you think there will be a point where it's just kind of like oh yeah, I had this done type thing? Like I had braces as a kid?
I think that it's moving in that way. But I think that there are some industries that are holding it back. So like the boobs is a really great example. The reason why I think people are more open about saying that they have boobs is because there's really nothing you can do to get boobs naturally, right? You either have them or you don't. There is no, if I do enough push-ups, I'm going to have boobs.
Right.
When it comes to BBLs and like body in particular, I think there's this idea that you can work out your way to that body. And for anyone who's in the like fitness sphere really, or if you have any kind of background in anatomy, you know that that's not quite possible. You can, of course, build muscle and build your body. That's totally possible, but it's not possible for every single person, no matter how much they're working in the gym, to suddenly have an hourglass figure, right? Like it's just not a thing. And in fact, the people who really are building and lifting and doing all those weights, their hips aren't getting bigger. They're actually getting more narrow, right? They're getting the thicker thighs, but the more narrow hips, the hip dips. It's not curving out of their waist like this.
Yeah.
And building your core is great, but it doesn't just shrink and shrink and shrink. That muscle is mass. And, you'll even get some widening of the waist. And it's really difficult to try to talk to people who don't understand this, that there is no workout plan out there that's going to suddenly make you go from whatever your body looks like now to this perfect hourglass, unless that was already the body type you had to begin with.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because one thing I used to do when I first started training back in 2006, I was at a very high-end gym. It's no longer around. And they would always say, okay, ask your client what celebrity they want to look like. And now looking back at it, it was one of the worst things you could do. Because if a guy would come in, this is back when Fight Club and, Brad Pitt's abs and whatever, like, oh, I want to have Brad Pitt's abs. I want to look like, well, Kim Kardashian wasn't a thing back then, Jennifer Aniston, right? But unless your body type is pretty much the same as them, but genetic factors are completely different, you can only look like your best genetic potential. Limb length, I'm 6'3". I'm built like an albino gorilla. My arms are so long, so I will never have the biceps of a guy that's 5'5", right? Because his delt's on top of his bicep, and it just looks much better on somebody who's shorter. And that same 5'5" guy will never have a long, lean, like almost swimmer type body, because he's not 6'3". So when you get away from all the bullshit of like having to look like all these different people, unless you're like a twin, you can't look like anybody else. You just can't do it.